Have you ever heard of the Septuagint, an ancient text shrouded in mystery that not only shaped our understanding of the Bible, but also influenced Western civilization as a whole? It's a book surrounded by power and controversy, considered dangerous by many. But what makes the Septuagint so special, and why has it been seen as a threat by some of the most significant religious and political institutions in history? In this video, we'll explore what the Septuagint really is, why it was written, and how it became one of the most influential texts in human history. It's in its most controversial parts where we uncover the secrets behind its translations, the conflicts it generated, and how it challenges what many believe they know about the Bible. Are you ready to learn about the book that some would prefer to keep hidden? Get ready, because the story of the Septuagint is far more intriguing and filled with unexpected twists than you can imagine. By the end, you'll understand why it's still considered a threat today. The Septuagint is regarded by some as the most dangerous book in the world. The Septuagint, also known as the Greek Old Testament, or the translation of the 70, abbreviated as LXX, is the oldest translation of the Hebrew Bible, rendered from Hebrew into Greek. But where does its name come from, and why is it so important? According to the historical text, the Letter of Aristeas, the translation was commissioned by Ptolemy II Philadelphus, who ruled Egypt between 285 and 247 BCE. He is said to have ordered the translation of Jewish laws into Greek, a task carried out by 72 Hebrew scholars, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. From this comes the name Septuagint, which refers to the 70 translators who participated in the process. Biblical scholars agree that the first 5 books, the Torah, were translated in the early 3rd century BCE, likely in the city of Alexandria, home to a large Jewish community. The remaining books of the Hebrew Bible were translated during the 2nd century BCE. During this same period, translations into Aramaic, known as Targums, also emerged, adapting the scriptures to the local language. At the time, Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic were predominant languages among the Jewish people, and the Septuagint became essential for providing access to the scriptures in a language most could understand. The name Septuagint has an interesting origin. It comes from the Latin Septuaginta interpretum, meaning the 70 interpreters. This expression derives from ancient Greek and translates as the translation of the 70. It wasn't until around the 4th century CE, during the time of St. Augustine of Hippo, 354 to 430 CE, that the term Septuagint became widely used. Legend has it that the Greek pharaoh of Egypt, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, sent 72 Hebrew translators, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, from Jerusalem to Alexandria. Their goal was to translate the Hebrew scriptures into Greek for inclusion in the famous Library of Alexandria. This story appears in the Letter of Aristeas, which is presented as correspondence between Aristeas and his brother Philocrates. Furthermore, figures like Philo of Alexandria and Flavius Josephus recount this narrative in their works, such as Antiquities of the Jews, and it is even mentioned by St. Augustine of Hippo. The legend is also recorded in the Babylonian Talmud, in Tractate Megillah, where it is said that King Ptolemy gathered the 72 elders in separate chambers without revealing the purpose of their meeting. He then entered each room and asked them to write the Torah of Moses. According to tradition, God inspired each of them to produce an identical translation, free of errors or discrepancies. Philo of Alexandria also notes that the 72 translators were chosen from among 6 scholars from each of Israel's 12 tribes. However, this detail raises historical questions, since it implies that the 12 tribes still existed during Ptolemy's reign. In reality, the 10 lost tribes had already been scattered by the Assyrians nearly 500 years earlier. Nonetheless, a remnant of these tribes remained in Jerusalem, significantly increasing the city's population during that time. Interestingly, later rabbinic tradition viewed the translation of the Septuagint with suspicion. Many rabbis believed that the Greek version distorted the sacred text, making it unsuitable for use in synagogues. It is said that the Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria suggested parts of Jewish law had already been translated into Greek long before the Septuagint, and even claimed that philosophers like Plato and Pythagoras might have been inspired by Jewish teachings. In 1844, translator Lancelot Charles Lee Brenton also acknowledged that the Jews of Alexandria were likely among the authors of the Septuagint. However, he dismissed Aristeas' account as a pious fiction, arguing that the name Septuagint originated because the original version was presented to the Jewish Sanhedrin in Alexandria for approval and editing. The Septuagint became so significant to the Jews of Alexandria that they celebrated its translation with an annual festival on the island of Pharos, where the legendary lighthouse of Alexandria stood, a site believed to be where this historic translation was completed. The Septuagint was written in ancient Greek and contains some sections with Semitisms, that is, idiomatic expressions and phrases derived from Semitic languages such as Hebrew and Aramaic. However, books like Daniel and Proverbs show a more pronounced Greek influence. Additionally, the Septuagint provides insights into the pronunciation of ancient Hebrew, as it transcribes many proper names using Greek vowels. It's worth noting that Hebrew texts of the time did not include vowel markings, though not all Hebrew biblical sounds had exact counterparts in Greek. Canonical differences. The Septuagint and the Hebrew Bible are not identical. Contrary to popular belief, the Septuagint is not a unified corpus, but a collection of ancient translations of the Tanakh, the Jewish sacred scriptures, as well as other Jewish texts now known as the Apocrypha. This collection developed during a time when the canon of the Hebrew Bible was still evolving. It was translated by different individuals in various locations and periods, often using differing Hebrew manuscripts. The Hebrew Bible, or Tanakh, is divided into 3 parts: the Law, Torah, the Prophets, Nevi'im, and the Writings, Ketuvim. The Septuagint, on the other hand, is organized into 4 categories: law, history, poetry, and prophets, with the apocryphal books added where deemed appropriate. Interestingly, surviving copies of the Septuagint, dating from the 4th century CE, include books and editions absent from the Jewish canon. Moreover, the content of these copies is not standardized. Some scholars argue that there is no conclusive evidence that the original Septuagint included these additional books known as deuterocanonical. These texts, written between 200 BCE and 50 CE, include works such as 1 and 2 Maccabees, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, Sirach, Ecclesiasticus or Ben Sirach, the Letter of Jeremiah, and additions to the books of Esther and Daniel. Some versions of the Septuagint are longer than the Masoretic text, the authoritative version in Rabbinic Judaism. For example, the book of Jeremiah in the Septuagint is significantly shorter than in the Hebrew Bible. Additionally, some copies of the Septuagint include texts like the Psalms of Solomon, 1 Esdras, 3 and 4 Maccabees, the Prayer of Manasseh, and Psalm 151. Why did Rabbinic Judaism reject the Septuagint? Rabbinic Judaism rejected the Septuagint as an official scripture for several reasons. First, in many instances, it differs significantly from the original Hebrew texts. One notable example is the Book of Job, where the differences are particularly striking. Another key issue is the quality of some translations, which sometimes show an apparent lack of understanding of Hebrew idioms. A classic example is found in Isaiah 7:14, where the Hebrew word alma, young woman, was translated into Greek as parthenos, virgin. This translation had significant implications for later Christian theology. The Septuagint's legacy in Christianity. The Septuagint became synonymous with the Greek Old Testament, the Christian canon that incorporates the books of the Hebrew Bible along with additional texts. Today, most Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches accept these books as part of their sacred canons, while Protestant churches, following the Reformation, chose to adhere to the Jewish canon, excluding these texts. These additional books came to be known as the Apocrypha and, in some editions like the King James Bible, are included under a separate title. As a translation from Hebrew to Greek, the Septuagint was influenced by Greek culture and linguistic nuances, which affected the translation's outcome. Certain Hebrew terms with specific meanings were not fully preserved or translated accurately into Greek, leading to varying interpretations. Furthermore, the cultural differences between the Jewish and Greek worlds also influenced some translations, with more abstract Jewish ideas being softened or adjusted in the Greek version. In Judaism, the Masoretic text was gradually accepted as the official canonical version of Hebrew scriptures, while the Septuagint was considered of lesser authority. Conversely, in Christianity, especially in the early Christian era, the Septuagint was widely used, particularly among Greek-speaking Christian communities, becoming a crucial source for theological development. The difference in the perception of the Septuagint's authority between Jews and Christians remains a point of contention, as the Greek version presents some significant divergences from the Hebrew tradition. In conclusion, the controversy surrounding the Septuagint primarily arises from its textual differences, the inclusion of additional books, and its use by Christians in contrast to the dominant Hebrew text in Judaism. These variations carry theological and historical implications, particularly regarding the interpretation of messianic prophecies and the development of Christian doctrine. Share your thoughts about the Septuagint in the comments. If you learned something new or found this interesting, please subscribe to our channel, Biblical Secrets. May God bless you abundantly, and see you soon.